6:47 a.m., and it changed everything. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan that squeaked every third rotation, a sound that had been driving me crazy for months. Lila kept promising to call someone to fix it, but she was always too busy with her important cruise line meetings to deal with household problems. That's what she called them now. Problems. My phone buzzed against the nightstand and I almost ignored it. Who texts at this hour? But insomnia makes you do stupid things. So I grabbed it. Unknown number, video attachment. The thumbnail showed a woman with blonde hair stepping onto what looked like a yacht. My finger hovered over the play button for a moment before curiosity won. I tapped it. The video was grainy, probably shot from a distance, but clear enough. There was my wife, Lila Carver, wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, laughing as a man in an expensive suit helped her aboard a sleek white yacht. The man wasn't me. He was tall, probably 6'2", with perfectly styled dark hair, and the kind of tan that comes from too much leisure time. His hand lingered on the small of her back as they walked toward the cabin, and she leaned into him like she'd done it 1,000 times before. The video lasted 37 seconds. 37 seconds to watch my marriage die. A second text came through. Thought you should know. They've been planning this for months. She told him you're too busy with your construction company to notice. A friend. I set the phone down carefully like it might explode. My hands weren't shaking yet, but I could feel the tremor building in my chest. Lila was supposed to be in Jacksonville for a 3-day conference. Cruise industry networking, she'd said. You know how boring those things are, Nick. You'd hate it. She'd kissed my cheek and promised to call every night. She hadn't called once. I got up and walked to her side of the bedroom. Her dresser was covered with the usual clutter. Jewelry, makeup, receipts she never threw away. I'd never bothered going through her things before. Privacy was important in a marriage, right? Trust was the foundation of everything. What a joke. The receipts told a story I'd been too blind to see. Dinner at Romano's, a place she'd never suggested we go together. Lingerie from Victoria's Secret, charged to her credit card 3 weeks ago. I'd never seen it. A parking receipt from the Marina District dated last Tuesday when she claimed to be working late at the office. In her jewelry box, underneath a tangle of necklaces I'd bought her for various anniversaries, I found a folded piece of hotel stationery. The letterhead read, Ocean Breeze Resort, Key Largo. The note was in her handwriting. Chase. Can't wait for our 6 weeks together. Don't text Nick's phone by mistake again. See you at the marina. L? 6 weeks, not 3 days. 6 weeks. I sat on the edge of the bed and read the note again. Chase. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. Someone from her work, probably. Someone with enough money to rent yachts and take other men's wives on 6-week vacations. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Lila herself. Conference is going great. Probably won't have signal for a few days. Don't worry if you don't hear from me. Love you. The timestamp showed she'd sent it 20 minutes ago. While she was boarding that yacht with Chase. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the empty bedroom. The sound was harsh and unfamiliar, like hearing your own voice on a recording. When was the last time I'd laughed? Really laughed. Not just the polite chuckles I gave Lila's stories about her coworkers or the fake enthusiasm I showed when she talked about her career ambitions. I'd built Carver Construction from nothing. Started with a pickup truck and a toolbox, worked 16-hour days for 5 years to get my first real contract. Now I had 12 full-time employees, 3 work crews, and enough steady business to buy this house, pay for Lila's car, and fund her expensive tastes in restaurants and clothes. And she was spending my money on another man. I walked to my home office and turned on the computer. If Lila thought I was too busy and stupid to notice her affair, she was about to learn how wrong she could be. Running a construction business meant dealing with permits, regulations, and bureaucrats who tried to screw you at every turn. You learned to pay attention to details. You learned to plan ahead. And you learned that when someone tried to cheat you, you hit back twice as hard. The cruise line Lila worked for had a website with employee directories. It took me 15 minutes to find Chase Banner, Vice President of Guest Relations, 38 years old, divorced, owned a condo in the Bayfront District. His LinkedIn profile showed him at various industry events, always smiling, always surrounded by attractive women in business suits, including my wife. There were photos going back 2 years, Lila and Chase at a company Christmas party, Lila and Chase at a team-building retreat in Orlando, Lila and Chase accepting some kind of award for innovative customer service solutions. 2 years. This had been going on for 2 years, and I'd been too focused on building my business to see it. I printed Chase's photo and address, then walked to the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled to life, and I stood there watching it brew, thinking about what came next. Lila had made her choice. She'd planned this elaborate deception, probably laughing with Chase about how easy it was to fool her hardworking husband. But Lila had always underestimated me. She saw the work boots and calloused hands and assumed I was just another blue-collar guy who got lucky. She never understood that you don't build a successful business by being stupid. You build it by being smarter than everyone who tries to take advantage of you. I took my coffee back to the office and started making a list. First, find out everything about Chase Banner. Where he lived, where he worked, who his friends were, what he drove, where he spent his money. Second, document everything. The photos, the receipts, the hotel note, the timeline of lies Lila had been telling me. Third, protect my assets. Lila had access to our joint accounts, but the business accounts were mine alone. I'd transfer everything important before she got back from her romantic cruise. Fourth, plan the counterattack. By the time the sun came up, I had a strategy. It wasn't about getting Lila back. That ship had sailed, literally. It was about making sure she and her boyfriend understood that actions have consequences. I called my foreman, Big Mike, at 7 a.m. "Nick? What's wrong, boss? You sound different." "I need a favor, Mike. A big one. How do you feel about working some overtime this week?" "Depends on what kind of overtime we're talking about. The kind that doesn't involve construction equipment." There was a pause. Mike had worked for me for 4 years, ever since I had hired him away from a competitor who was treating him like garbage. He was 6'4", built like a linebacker, and absolutely loyal. He also had a very flexible definition of what constituted legitimate business activities. "What did Lila do now?" he asked. I told him about the video, the note, the 2 years of lies. Mike listened without interrupting, occasionally grunting in disapproval. "So what's the plan?" he asked when I finished. "I'm going to remind them that sharks aren't the only dangerous things in Florida waters." "I'm in. When do we start?" I looked at the wedding ring on my left hand. White gold, engraved with our wedding date and the words, "Forever yours." I'd saved for 3 months to buy it, working double shifts and eating ramen noodles for dinner. I pulled it off and set it on the desk next to Chase's photo. We start now. By 8 a.m., I was at the marina where Chase kept his yacht. The harbor master's office was busy with the usual morning crowd. Boat owners checking weather reports, tourists booking fishing charters, and marina staff preparing for another day of overpriced boat services. Old man Torres was working the security desk, same as he'd been doing for the past 15 years. I'd done some renovation work on his house 2 years ago, replaced his roof after Hurricane Isabel, and only charged him for materials. He owed me a favor. "Nick, good to see you, my friend. What brings you down to the water this early?" "Research project," I said, sliding Chase's photo across the counter. "You know this guy?" Torres squinted at the photo, then nodded. "Chase Banner. Keeps the Sea Breeze in Slip 47. Nice boat, but he's an a-hole. Always complaining about something. Other boats are too close, the dock workers are too loud, the water isn't clean enough. Why you asking?" "He's been screwing my wife." Torres's expression darkened. He was old school, probably 70, and took marriage vows seriously. "That son of a witch. What you need to know?" "Everything. His schedule, his habits, who he brings around when he's planning to take his next trip." "He left yesterday around 6 p.m. Had a blonde woman with him. Fancy dress, lots of luggage. Heard him telling the dock crew he'd be gone for a while, maybe a month or two. 6 weeks, just like the note said." "Any idea where they were heading?" "South, toward the Keys. That boat's got a range of about 500 miles, so he could be anywhere from Key West to the Bahamas by now." I thanked Torres and headed back to my truck. Phase 1 was intelligence gathering, and I was already learning useful information. Chase was predictable, arrogant, and liked to brag about his plans. Those were exploitable weaknesses. My next stop was Chase's condo building. The bayfront towers were exactly what you'd expect from a divorced cruise line executive trying to impress younger women. All glass and steel, with a doorman, valet parking, and probably a monthly maintenance fee that cost more than most people's rent. I parked across the street and called Marisol, my office manager. She'd been handling my paperwork and scheduling for 3 years, and she was smart enough to ask the right questions without needing detailed explanations. "Marisol, I need you to do some research for me. Guy named Chase Banner works for Sunset Cruise Lines. I need to know everything, where he banks, what he drives, his credit report, property records, anything public you can dig up. This about Lila? I shouldn't have been surprised that she'd figured it out. Marisol noticed everything, including the fact that Layla had stopped calling the office, stopped bringing me lunch, and stopped wearing her wedding ring when she thought no one was looking. Yeah, it's about Lila. Good. I never liked her anyway. She treated you like garbage, and she was rude to me every time she called. Give me 2 hours. While Marisol worked her magic with public records and internet searches, I drove to Lila's mother's house. Patricia Henley lived in a gated community called Sunset Oaks, where every house looked the same and every lawn was maintained by a service. She'd never approved of her daughter marrying a construction worker, even a successful one. The conversation was going to be awkward but necessary. Patricia answered the door wearing a tennis outfit and a surprised expression. "Nick, what are you doing here? Lila said you were too busy with work to visit." "We need to talk, Patricia. It's about Lila." She led me to her living room, which was decorated in shades of beige and cream that probably had fancy names like champagne and pearl. Everything looked expensive and uncomfortable. "Is something wrong? Has there been an accident?" "No accident. But Lila isn't where she said she'd be, and I thought you should know the truth before you hear it from someone else." I told her about the affair, showed her the photos from Chase's LinkedIn profile, explained about the lies and the secret vacation. Patricia's face went through several expressions: shock, denial, anger, and finally embarrassment. "I don't understand. Lila loves you. She's always talking about how hard you work, how successful the business is." "She loves my bank account. There's a difference." Patricia was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photos. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to file for divorce. But first, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person she really is." "Nick, please don't do anything that will hurt her career. She's worked so hard. She worked hard to destroy our marriage. Her career isn't my problem anymore." I left Patricia's house and drove back to the office. Marisol was waiting with a folder full of printouts and a satisfied smile. "Chase Banner is an idiot," she announced. "He posts everything on social media, uses the same password for multiple accounts, and apparently thinks privacy settings are optional." She spread the papers across my desk like a general planning a military campaign. "He drives a red Ferrari, license plate Chase 1, lives in a 2-bedroom condo that he's been trying to sell for 6 months because he's behind on the mortgage payments, has 3 credit cards maxed out, owes $40,000 in back taxes, and just got turned down for a business loan. So he's broke. Worse than broke, he's desperate, and desperate people make stupid decisions, like seducing the wife of a successful businessman and taking her on an expensive vacation he couldn't afford." "There's more," Marisol continued. "His ex-wife filed a restraining order against him 2 years ago. Apparently, he doesn't handle rejection well. And get this, he's been dating at least 3 other women from his office, including Lila's best friend, Monica." That was interesting. Monica Chen had been Lila's maid of honor at our wedding. They went out for drinks every Friday night, shared secrets, and probably talked about their relationships. If Monica was also sleeping with Chase, that meant Lila either didn't know about the competition or didn't care. What about Monica? What's her story? Monica Rivera, not Chen. That was her ex-husband's name. She's in marketing at Sunset Cruise Lines, divorced, lives in a studio apartment downtown. From her Instagram posts, she's been on Chase's boat at least a dozen times in the past 6 months. So Chase was juggling multiple affairs, spending money he didn't have, and probably promising each woman that she was the only one. It was a house of cards waiting to collapse. I just needed to provide the right push. "Marisol, I need you to do one more thing. Find out when Chase and Lila are supposed to come back. Check the marina reservations, his work calendar, anything that might give us a timeline." "Already on it. According to his assistant's calendar, he's supposed to be back in the office on Monday, 6 weeks from yesterday. And get this, he booked Slip 47 for extended maintenance, starting next Tuesday. 6 weeks. Just like the note said. That gave me plenty of time to prepare a proper welcome home party. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Lila's number. "Hey, honey." Her voice was bright and cheerful, with just a hint of guilt that I'd been too trusting to notice before. "How's everything at home?" "Fine. How's the conference?" "Oh, you know how these things are. Lots of boring presentations and networking events. I'm learning so much, though. This could really help my career." "I'll bet it could." "When are you coming home?" "Well, that's actually why I'm calling. They've extended the conference, and there are some amazing opportunities here." Would you mind if I stayed an extra few days, maybe a week? How long is a week, Lila? There was a pause. I'm not sure yet. It depends on how things develop. You understand, right? This could be huge for us. Us. She was still pretending this was about our future together. Sure, I understand. Take all the time you need. Really? You're not upset? Why would I be upset? You're working hard for your career. I respect that. I love you, Nick. I know I've been distant lately, but this trip is going to change everything. She was right about that. After I hung up, I sat in my office chair and looked at the evidence spread across my desk. Photos, financial records, timeline of lies, proof of multiple affairs. It was enough to destroy Chase's career and Lila's reputation. But that wasn't enough. They'd humiliated me, stolen from me, and lied to my face for 2 years. They thought I was too stupid and too busy to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I picked up my phone and called Big Mike. You ready for that overtime project? Heck yes. What's the first job? We're going to redecorate Chase's condo. And by redecorate, I mean make sure he understands that some mistakes have permanent consequences. When do we start? I looked at the wedding ring sitting on my desk, then dropped it in the trash can. Tonight. Chase Banner's red Ferrari was parked in its assigned spot in the Bayfront Towers garage at 11:47 p.m. The vanity license plate Chase 1 gleamed under the fluorescent lights like a neon sign advertising its owner's ego. Big Mike and I had been watching the building for 3 hours, making sure Chase was really gone and not just pretending to be on vacation. The doorman had confirmed that Mr. Banner was traveling extensively and wasn't expected back for several weeks. Perfect. Nice car, Mike said, running his hand along the Ferrari's hood. Shame it's owned by such a piece of crap. I opened my toolbox and pulled out a small funnel and a 5-pound bag of sugar. You know what they say about expensive toys? They break so easily. Mike grinned. Sugar in the gas tank. Classic. Sugar's a myth. Doesn't actually damage the engine, but this will. I held up a small bottle of corn syrup. Gets into the fuel system, gums up everything, and costs about $8,000 to fix properly. While I worked on the fuel system, Mike handled the cosmetic touches. He used a key to scratch Home Wrecker into the driver's side door, then moved to the passenger side and added Cheater in letters 6 inches tall. The custom paint job that probably cost more than most people's annual salary was now an advertisement for Chase's moral character. What about the tires? Mike asked. Leave them. I want him to be able to drive it to the repair shop. Let him see the damage. Let him think about what it means. We finished with the car and moved to the elevator. I'd done renovation work in buildings like this before, and they all had the same weaknesses. Security cameras in the lobby and garage, but not in the stairwells or service areas. Keycard access to the residential floors, but maintenance staff had master keys, and maintenance staff could be bribed. Chase's condo was on the 14th floor, Unit 1412. The hallway was empty, decorated with generic art and the kind of carpet that was designed to hide stains. I knocked softly on his door, waited 30 seconds, then knocked again. No answer. Mike pulled out a small leather case containing lockpicks. You want to do the honors, or should I? Your show. It took him less than 2 minutes to get us inside. The condo was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows with an ocean view, and the kind of sterile cleanliness that came from having a maid service. There were photos of Chase with various women scattered around the living room, including several of Lila at company events. But there were also photos of Monica, the friend who was supposedly Lila's confidant. Monica in a bikini on Chase's boat. Monica wearing an evening dress at some fancy restaurant. Monica kissing Chase on what looked like a private beach. Looks like your wife's boyfriend has been busy, Mike observed. Looks like my wife's best friend has been keeping secrets. I took photos of everything with my phone, making sure to get clear shots of the timestamps and locations when possible. Then I went to work on Chase's personal space. His bedroom closet was full of expensive suits, designer shoes, and the kind of accessories that cost more than my employees made in a week. I selected 3 of his best suits and carried them to the kitchen, where I stuffed them into the garbage disposal. The grinding sound was satisfying, even if the disposal couldn't handle the fabric completely. His bathroom medicine cabinet revealed an interesting collection of prescription pills, including antidepressants, and what looked like performance enhancement medication. I took photos of the labels, then rearranged everything so it would be obvious someone had been there. Mike was working in the living room, replacing family photos with printouts from Chase's social media accounts, specifically the photos showing him with multiple women. Think he'll get the message? If he doesn't, we'll send a clearer one next time. I found Chase's home office and went through his desk drawers. Financial records showed he was in worse shape than Marisol's research had indicated. Credit card statements revealed charges for jewelry, expensive dinners, and hotel rooms all in the past 6 months, all while he was supposedly dating my wife exclusively. But the most interesting discovery was a folder labeled Insurance Claims. Chase had filed 3 different claims in the past 2 years for theft and vandalism to his boat, his car, and his condo. Either he was the unluckiest man in Florida, or he was committing insurance fraud to pay for his lifestyle. I photographed every document, then left the folder open on his desk with a note. Insurance fraud is a federal crime. So is adultery in some states. Choose your battles carefully. A concerned citizen. We were back in the garage within an hour. The Ferrari looked exactly the same from a distance, but up close, the damage was obvious. Chase would see it the moment he returned from his romantic cruise with my wife. "What's next?" Mike asked as we loaded our tools back into my truck. "Now we let Lila's friends know what kind of man she's chosen over her husband." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Lila's contact list. She'd left her phone synced to our shared computer, which meant I had access to all her friends' numbers and email addresses. Monica was at the top of the list, followed by her work colleagues, her book club friends, and her yoga class acquaintances. I started with Monica. The text was simple. "Hi, Monica. This is Nick, Lila's husband. I thought you should know that Chase is currently on vacation with my wife. Since you've been dating him too, I figured you'd want to know about the overlap. Check his social media post from yesterday. Nick." I attached 3 photos. Chase and Lila boarding the yacht, Chase and Monica from his Instagram account, and a screenshot of his dating profile, which was apparently still active. Monica's response came back in less than 5 minutes. "What the heck are you talking about?" Instead of answering, I sent her more photos. Chase with Lila at company events. Chase with Monica at restaurants. Chase with a third woman I didn't recognize at what looked like a beach resort. The next response took longer. "That bastard, I can't believe this." Then, "How long have you known?" "I found out yesterday. How long have you been seeing him?" 8 months. He said he was divorced and ready for something serious. He told Lila the same thing. Probably told the other women too. There was a long pause, then, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man Chase Banner really is, starting with his employer." "Don't drag me into this, Nick. I could lose my job." "You should have thought about that before you helped him cheat on my wife." I sent similar messages to 5 other women from Chase's social media photos. 3 of them responded with shock and anger. One admitted she'd been casually dating him for 6 months. Another said she'd broken up with him because she suspected he was seeing someone else. By 2 a.m., Chase Banner's reputation was starting to crumble, and he didn't even know it yet. But Lila's reckoning was still coming. I drove home and sat in my driveway for a few minutes, looking at the house I'd bought for us 3 years ago. 2-story colonial, 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, and a backyard big enough for the kids we talked about having someday. I'd worked overtime for months to save up for the down payment, dreaming about building a life together. Now it just felt like an expensive monument to my own stupidity. Inside, the house was exactly as I'd left it. Lila's coffee mug was still in the sink. Her magazines were still scattered across the coffee table. Her shoes were still by the front door, waiting for her to come home and slip them on. But she wasn't coming home. Not really. Even if she ended the affair, even if she begged for forgiveness, the trust was gone. The marriage was over. I'd been too shocked and angry to accept it yesterday, but now the reality was settling in. I was going to be divorced by 40. The thought should have been depressing, but instead I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Relief. No more pretending to be interested in Lila's work stories. No more walking on eggshells around her moods. No more wondering why she seemed so distant, so distracted, so eager to be anywhere but home. I'd been mourning my marriage for 2 years without realizing it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your wife is a hoe, and your life is pathetic. Stay away from Chase, or you'll regret it." Interesting. Someone was already trying to intimidate me, which meant my message was getting through. I screenshotted the text and added it to my growing file of evidence. Then I replied, "Chase can't protect himself, much less anyone else. Ask him about his insurance fraud when he gets back. Nick." The response was immediate. You don't know who you're messing with. Actually, I do. I'm messing with a broke, desperate man who's about to lose everything, and I'm messing with the people who helped him steal my wife. Fair warning, I'm just getting started. No response to that one. I went to my office and opened a new document on my computer. At the top, I typed, "The Complete Destruction of Chase Banner and Lila Carver, a step-by-step guide." Then I started writing. 3 days later, I was ready to escalate. Marisol had spent the morning calling local newspapers and gossip websites, posing as a concerned citizen who'd witnessed a dramatic confrontation at the marina. She had a gift for creative storytelling and a talent for making herself sound like a different person over the phone. "The society reporter at the Herald is very interested in your story," she announced, hanging up from her latest call. "Apparently, Chase Banner has been on their radar for months. Something about unpaid bills and suspicious insurance claims." "What kind of suspicious?" "The kind where expensive things get damaged right before he needs money. His boat, his car, his condo. Always when he's behind on payments, always covered by insurance, always just enough to get him back on his feet. Insurance fraud was a federal crime, but it was also hard to prove unless you had inside information. Fortunately, I now had access to Chase's financial records, his insurance claims, and his pattern of convenient accidents. Set up a meeting with the reporter. I have some documents they might find interesting." While Marisol worked her media contacts, I focused on the next phase of the plan: public humiliation. Chase and Lila thought they were safe on their romantic cruise, probably laughing about how easy it had been to fool the hardworking husband. They had no idea their secrets were spreading through their social and professional circles like a virus. Monica had been busy too. After I'd shown her proof of Chase's multiple affairs, she'd become an enthusiastic ally in exposing his lies. She'd already told 3 coworkers about his deception, and word was spreading through the Sunset Cruise Line's office. "I can't believe I was so stupid," she said when she called that afternoon. "He told me Lila was just a work friend, that he'd never been involved with anyone from the office. How many other women do you think he's been seeing? Based on what I found in his social media accounts, at least 5, maybe more. There's this woman named Jennifer who works for a competing cruise line. She's been posting photos with Chase for months, and someone named Ashley who seems to think they're engaged." The web of lies was even more complex than I'd realized. Chase wasn't just cheating on my wife. He was running a full-scale romantic con game, juggling multiple relationships, and probably taking money from several women. "Monica, I need a favor. Is there any way you can get me into the company yacht club event next Friday?" "The annual awards dinner? Why?" "Because Chase and Lila are supposed to be back by then, and I think it's time for a public reunion." There was a pause. "Nick, that's a bad idea. There will be hundreds of people there, including our bosses and clients. If you cause a scene..." "I'm not going to cause a scene. I'm just going to attend a social event with my wife." "What could be wrong with that?" Monica sighed. "Fine, but I'm not responsible for what happens." "Fair enough." The yacht club event was perfect for my purposes. It would be crowded, public, and full of people from Lila's professional world. If she was planning to leave me for Chase, she'd have to face the consequences in front of everyone who mattered to her career. But first, I had one more surprise to arrange. I called Torres at the marina. "I need another favor, and this one's bigger than the last." "What you got in mind?" "Chase's boat is coming back tomorrow night. I want to be there when it arrives." "You planning to do something stupid?" "I'm planning to do something necessary. There's a difference." Torres was quiet for a moment. "You know I can't let you damage marina property or hurt nobody." "I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just want to have a conversation with my wife and her boyfriend. In public, where there are witnesses." "All right. But if this goes sideways, I don't know nothing about it." "Understood." That evening, I drove to the yacht club and walked around the grounds, familiarizing myself with the layout. The main building was elegant but not ostentatious, with large windows overlooking the water and a deck that extended over the marina. The awards dinner would be held in the main ballroom, with cocktails on the deck beforehand. It was the perfect setting for a dramatic confrontation. I was walking back to my truck when I spotted a familiar figure near the parking lot. Ethan Reeves, a lawyer who'd done some work for my business and who I knew was friends with Lila. He was talking on his phone, pacing back and forth like he was agitated about something. "Told you this was a bad idea from the beginning," he was saying. "If her husband finds out..." He stopped talking when he saw me approaching. "Nick, what are you doing here?" Just checking out the venue for Friday's event. Lila's really excited about it. Ethan's expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. That's great. Should be a nice evening. Should be memorable, I agreed. By the way, Ethan, I've been meaning to ask you about something. Hypothetically speaking, what would happen if someone filed false insurance claims, asking for a friend? His face went pale. That's a very serious crime, Nick. Federal charges, prison time, permanent criminal record. Why do you ask? Just curious. My friend seems to think it's a victimless crime, but I told him the FBI takes fraud very seriously. Your friend should be very careful. The authorities have sophisticated ways of detecting patterns in insurance claims. I'll be sure to tell him. See you Friday, Ethan. I walked away, leaving him standing in the parking lot with his phone still pressed to his ear. If Ethan was involved in Chase's insurance fraud, he was probably panicking right now. And if he wasn't involved, he was wondering why I was asking questions about federal crimes. Either way, the pressure was building. My phone rang as I was driving home. Unknown number again. You need to back off, Nick. This is your last warning. The voice was male, probably mid-30s, trying to sound threatening, but mostly sounding nervous. Who is this? Someone who's tired of your games. Chase has friends, and we don't appreciate you harassing him. Chase has creditors, not friends. And I'm not harassing anyone. I'm just asking questions about insurance fraud and adultery, both perfectly legal topics of conversation. You vandalized his car and broke into his condo. Interesting. Chase had discovered the damage and somehow figured out I was responsible. That meant he was back in town, or at least in communication with people who were. I don't know what you're talking about, but if someone damaged Chase's car, maybe it was one of the other women he's been cheating with. I hear there are several. Stay away from him, Nick. I'm serious. Or what? You'll file a false police report? Commit more insurance fraud? Threaten me with violence? Because all of those things are crimes and I record all my phone calls. The line went dead. I immediately called Marisol. Change of plans. Chase is back early and he's scared. We need to move up the timeline. How much earlier? Tomorrow night. And Marisol, call that reporter back. Tell him the story just got bigger. Chase's yacht returned to slip 47 at 9:23 p.m. on Thursday, 2 days ahead of schedule. I was watching from Torres's security office, using binoculars to observe the dramatic homecoming. Chase looked exactly like his photos, tall, tanned, and arrogant, even when he was clearly agitated about something. He was barking orders at the dock crew, gesturing angrily at his damaged Ferrari in the parking lot, and constantly checking his phone. Lila looked different, thinner, more nervous, wearing clothes I'd never seen before. She kept glancing around like she was expecting trouble, which showed she was smarter than I'd given her credit for. There's your wife, Torres said, handing me a cup of coffee. She don't look happy. She's about to be a lot less happy. I watched them unload luggage from the yacht, noting how Chase barely helped with the heavy bags. A real gentleman, that one. They argued briefly about something, then walked toward the parking lot where Chase's vandalized Ferrari was waiting. The explosion of profanity when Chase saw his car was audible from 200 yards away. What the heck happened to my car? Lila was staring at the scratched paint and the words homewrecker and cheater carved into the doors. Even from a distance, I could see her face going pale. Chase was on his phone immediately, probably calling the police or his insurance company. This was the moment of truth. Would he file another fraudulent claim? Or would he admit that someone had vandalized his car because of his affair with a married woman? I didn't wait to find out. I walked out of the security office and across the marina, taking my time, letting them see me coming. Lila, there you are. I was wondering when you'd get back from your conference. She froze like a deer in headlights. Chase stopped yelling into his phone and turned to face me, and I got my first close look at the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. He was handsome in a generic corporate way, but there was something weak around his eyes. This was a man who'd never been in a real fight, never worked with his hands, never had to earn anything through actual effort. He was soft, and he was scared. Nick, Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? Picking up my wife from her business trip. Although, I have to say, this doesn't look like any conference I've ever seen. Chase stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. Look, buddy, I don't know what you think is going on here. I think you've been screwing my wife for 2 years. spending my money on romantic vacations, and filing false insurance claims to pay for your lifestyle. But hey, I could be wrong about the insurance fraud. The FBI will figure that out. His face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Just like you don't know anything about the other women you've been dating. Monica sends her regards, by the way. So does Jennifer, and Ashley, and the 3 others whose names I haven't learned yet. Lila was staring at Chase with a look of dawning horror. Other women? Chase, what is he talking about? He's lying, baby. He's just trying to cause trouble because he's jealous. I pulled out my phone and showed Lila the photos I'd taken from Chase's condo. Chase with Monica, Chase with Jennifer, Chase with Ashley, Chase with women whose names I didn't know, in restaurants and hotels and on boats. Jealous of what? A broke, desperate con man who's juggling 5 different affairs and committing federal crimes to pay his bills? Chase made a move toward me, but I stepped back and raised my hands. Careful, Chase. There are security cameras everywhere, and assaulting someone is a crime. You're already looking at federal charges for insurance fraud. You really want to add assault to the list? You son of a witch. You vandalized my car. I didn't vandalize anything. But if someone did, maybe it was one of your other girlfriends. Seems like you've made a lot of enemies lately. Lila was still staring at the photos on my phone. Chase, is this true? Have you been seeing other women? Lila, I can explain. It's a simple yes or no question. Chase looked around desperately like he was hoping for rescue, but there was no rescue coming. The marina was public property. There were witnesses everywhere, and his lies were finally catching up with him. Some of those photos are old, he said finally, from before we got serious. The timestamps say otherwise, I said helpfully. This one with Jennifer is from last month. This one with Ashley is from 2 weeks ago. And this one with Monica is from the day before you left for your romantic cruise with my wife. Lila's face was cycling through emotions, shock, anger, humiliation, and something that looked like relief. You bastard! You lying, cheating bastard! Lila, wait! She slapped him, hard. The sound echoed across the marina like a crack of thunder. Don't you dare try to explain this away. 2 years, Chase. 2 years I've been lying to my husband, destroying my marriage, planning a future with you, and you've been screwing half the women in Miami. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. She turned to me, and for the first time in months, she looked like the woman I'd married. Nick, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? She flinched. Both. I was stupid and selfish and cruel, and I destroyed everything good in my life for a man who was lying to me the whole time. Yes, you did. Chase was backing toward his yacht, probably planning to make a dramatic escape, but I wasn't done with him yet. Going somewhere, Chase? This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Good idea. While you're at it, ask them about the statute of limitations on insurance fraud. I think you'll find it's longer than you might hope. He stopped moving. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You stole my wife, spent my money, and thought you were smarter than everyone else. But you're not smart, Chase. You're just a broke, desperate con man who got lucky for a while. I never stole anything from you. You stole 2 years of my life. You stole my marriage. You stole my trust in the woman I loved. And you did it all while laughing about how easy it was to fool the hard-working husband. Lila was crying now, quiet tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. Nick, please. Can we talk? Privately? What's left to talk about, Lila? You made your choice. You chose him over me. Lies over truth, selfishness over commitment. The only question now is whether you want to make this easy or hard. What do you mean? I mean, I'm filing for divorce on Monday morning. You can cooperate, and we can split everything fairly, or you can fight it, and I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why our marriage ended. Chase was on his phone again, speaking in urgent whispers to someone. Probably Ethan, the lawyer who'd been helping him with his insurance scams. You can't prove anything, he said when he hung up. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to ask questions. The FBI will do the rest. You're bluffing. I pulled out a business card and handed it to him. Agent Sarah Martinez, FBI Financial Crimes Division. She's very interested in talking to you about your insurance claims. Seems there's a pattern that's caught their attention. Chase's hands were shaking as he read the card. You contacted the FBI? I contacted a reporter. The reporter contacted the FBI. Amazing how these things work. That was a lie. I'd gotten Agent Martinez's card from a construction client who'd been investigated for tax evasion. But Chase didn't know that, and the fear in his eyes told me he was guilty of exactly what I suspected. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is. Your relationship with my wife is over, your insurance scams are over, your career is probably over. And if you ever contact Lila again, or me, or anyone in my family, I'll make sure the rest of your life is over too." I turned to Lila. "Get your things from his boat. You're coming home with me." "Nick, I don't think... You're still my wife until the divorce is final. And right now you need a lawyer more than you need a boyfriend." She nodded and walked toward the yacht. Chase started to follow her, but I stepped in his way. "She's done with you, Chase. Find someone else to con." "This isn't over," he repeated. "Keep telling yourself that." 20 minutes later, Lila and I were driving home in silence, her luggage in the back of my truck. She'd aged 10 years in the past hour, and she looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her lies had been holding her up and now she was collapsing without them. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now you find somewhere else to live and we figure out how to divide our assets without destroying each other." "I meant with Chase, with the FBI." "That's not your problem anymore. You chose to get involved with a criminal. Now you get to live with the consequences." We pulled into our driveway, and Lila stared at the house like she was seeing it for the first time. "I really screwed this up, didn't I?" "Yes, you really did." But as I watched her walk toward the front door, shoulders slumped in defeat, I realized that my anger was already fading. The revenge had been satisfying, but it hadn't fixed anything. My marriage was still over, my trust was still broken, and tomorrow, I'd still be a divorced man starting over at 40. The only difference was that now everyone knew the truth, and sometimes that had to be enough. The next morning brought chaos. I woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and an email inbox that had exploded overnight. The story had gone viral in ways I hadn't expected. Marisol had been busy. The Herald Society reporter had published a front-page story titled "Cruise Line Executives' Web of Lies Exposed," complete with photos of Chase's vandalized Ferrari and quotes from multiple sources describing his pattern of insurance fraud and romantic deception. But that was just the beginning. The story had been picked up by 3 other newspapers, 2 television stations, and something called Miami Gossip Weekly, which apparently had a readership that included most of the city's business and social elite. Chase's photo was everywhere, along with details about his financial problems, his multiple affairs, and his suspicious insurance claims. The FBI had issued a statement confirming they were investigating allegations of insurance fraud involving a Miami area businessman. They didn't name Chase specifically, but everyone knew who they were talking about. Sunset Cruise Lines had suspended Chase pending a thorough investigation of serious allegations. Lila had been placed on administrative leave as well, which meant both of them were unemployed as of yesterday afternoon. Monica called at 7 a.m., her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and vindication. "Nick, you need to see the news. They're calling Chase a serial romantic fraudster. The reporter talked to 8 different women who'd been dating him simultaneously. 8! And that's just the ones who were willing to go on record. What about the insurance fraud? The FBI raided his condo this morning, took boxes of documents, his computer, everything. His lawyer is claiming it's all a misunderstanding, but nobody believes that." I felt a moment of satisfaction, but it was tempered by the realization that Lila was probably going to be caught up in the investigation. Whatever else she'd done, she didn't deserve to go to prison for Chase's crimes. "Monica, did Lila know about the insurance fraud?" "I don't think so. She's not smart enough to pull off something like that, and she's too much of a rule follower to get involved in anything illegal. She probably thought Chase was just successful. That was a relief. Lila had betrayed me, but she wasn't a criminal. Just selfish and stupid." My phone rang. Lila's number. "Nick, have you seen the news? Hard to miss it. They're saying Chase might go to prison. They're saying I might be investigated too." "Are you guilty of insurance fraud?" "No. I didn't even know about any of that. I thought he was successful, that he had money from his divorce settlement." "Then you'll probably be fine. The FBI is good at separating witnesses from criminals." There was a long pause. "What about us? What about our marriage?" I looked around the kitchen where we'd eaten breakfast together for 3 years, where we'd planned our future and talked about having children. It felt like a museum now, full of artifacts from a relationship that no longer existed. "There is no us, Lila. There hasn't been for 2 years. But if I end things with Chase, if I get counseling, if I do whatever it takes to make this right, it's too late for that. Please, Nick. I know I screwed up, but people make mistakes. People change. We could start over. No, we couldn't. Even if I could forgive the affair, I can't forgive the lies. 2 years of looking me in the eye and lying about where you were, who you were with, what you were doing. 2 years of pretending to love me while you were planning to leave me for another man. She was crying again. I did love you. I do love you. You love the idea of me. The security, the house, the successful business, but you don't love me enough to be faithful, and you don't respect me enough to tell the truth. So that's it? You're just going to throw away 5 years of marriage? I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. I hung up and sat in the quiet kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the news coverage of my personal disaster. It was surreal, seeing my private pain turned into public entertainment. But it was also liberating. For 2 years, I'd been living a lie without knowing it. Now everyone knew the truth, including me. My phone buzzed with a text from Big Mike. Saw the news? You okay, boss? I typed back, better than okay? Justice served. What about work? You coming in today? I looked around the empty house, at the wedding photos that would need to come down, at the furniture that would need to be divided, at the life that would need to be dismantled and rebuilt. Yeah, I'll be in. Got a business to run. Because that was the thing about revenge. It was satisfying in the moment, but it didn't change the fundamentals of your life. I still had to get up every morning, still had to work, still had to figure out how to move forward. But at least now I was moving forward with the truth, instead of living in someone else's lie. The divorce proceedings took 6 months. Lila fought for half of everything, claiming she'd contributed to the business's success through her emotional support and networking connections. Her lawyer, not Ethan, who was facing his own legal problems related to Chase's insurance fraud, argued that she deserved alimony and a share of my future earnings. I fought back with documentation of her affair, evidence of money she'd spent on Chase, and testimony from witnesses who'd seen her betraying our marriage vows. In the end, she got the house, which I didn't want anymore anyway. And I got the business, my truck, and my freedom. Chase Banner was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for insurance fraud, conspiracy, and tax evasion. The investigation revealed he'd stolen over $200,000 from insurance companies and had been running romantic cons on wealthy women for nearly 5 years. Lila testified against him in exchange for immunity, which probably saved her from prison, but destroyed whatever was left of their relationship. She moved back in with her mother and took a job at a small travel agency, making about a third of what she'd earned at the cruise line. Her social media accounts, which had once been full of photos from expensive restaurants and luxury vacations, went quiet. Monica got a new job with a competing cruise line and started dating a marine biologist who seemed to actually care about her. She sent me a Christmas card thanking me for opening her eyes to the truth. Ethan Reeves was disbarred for helping Chase file fraudulent insurance claims. He's working as a paralegal now, probably wondering how he got talked into risking his career for a con man. As for me, I expanded the business, hired 6 more employees, and bought a new house closer to the water. It's smaller than the old place, but it's mine. And nobody lies to me about where they're going or who they're seeing. I still get angry sometimes, thinking about those 2 years of deception. But mostly I feel grateful. Grateful that I found out the truth before it was too late to start over. Grateful that I had the courage to fight back instead of just accepting betrayal. Grateful that I learned the difference between love and convenience. Some people said I went too far, that I should have handled the situation privately instead of destroying Chase and Lila publicly. But those people never had to live with 2 years of lies, never had to wonder if their entire marriage was built on deception, never had to watch someone they loved choose selfishness over commitment. Chase and Lila made their choices. I just made sure they lived with the consequences. And in the end, that's all justice really is. Making sure that actions have consequences, that lies eventually meet truth, and that people who think they're smarter than everyone else learn they're not. The sharks in Florida waters aren't the only dangerous predators. Sometimes the most dangerous ones walk on land, wear expensive suits, and smile while they're destroying your life. But every predator has a weakness. Every con man eventually meets someone who won't be conned. Every liar eventually faces the truth. Chase Banner learned that lesson the hard way. So did my ex-wife. And I learned something too, that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even,